treatment, there's enough public evidence to be concerned. If you were forced to get the shot to work, travel, or maybe you just trusted the system back then, check out this natural solution. Formulated by Dr. Peter McCullough in collaboration with the Wellness Company. And they just leveled up their original detox formula for $30 less. Introducing the 3-in-1 Ultimate Spike Detox, conveniently consolidated into one capsule, with 4 times more nattokinase, 500 milligrams of bromelain, and 500 milligrams of turmeric root extract. Nattokinase, an enzyme researched for its anti-clotting effects, may work to break down spike proteins. Combined with bromelain and curcumin, it provides a potent blend for detoxification and cellular support. Crafted with 100% natural ingredients, Ultimate Spike Detox is backed by research, offering effective support for your cell's natural repair and recovery. Experience the only formula approved and used by Dr. Peter McCullough, a top freedom-fighting doctor who risked it all. Head to twc.health/beans and use code BEANS for 10% off plus free shipping. Again, that's twc.health/beans and use code BEANS for 10% off. Good afternoon, everyone. Hello. Hope you're all doing well. It's been a while. I am so sorry about the crazy schedule with the show. If you guys are watching on social media, please hit a thumbs up, share it out with your friends. This is With Beanz episode 11. The Shakedown continues because the Shakedown definitely continues. We have some politics to talk about today. We're going to talk about CPAC. I was just at CPAC and came back. Lots of stuff to go over with you guys, and I'm very excited you're here. Who was in the chat today? Hammer O Justice is here, checking in for a second and leaving. Will is here, Sharon's here, Future Folk is here, Smith is here. It's really hard to keep track of this with abrupt changes in schedule, and so I apologize for that. Last week, I attended CPAC on behalf of the Make America Healthy Again organization. We had a lot of interviews. We had a lot of fun. I got to stand next to Glenn Jacobs, who, if you are a WWE fan, I think I'll pull it up. I didn't have it up to show everyone today, but I think I'm going to pull it up to show everyone. It was something. I'm little, in case you didn't know. I am a little one, and he is not a little one. He's rather tall. So it was really something. But yeah, so you can hear this on audio podcasting platforms as well. You can check out Spotify, you could check out SiriusXM, you can check out iHeart, you can check out Apple. Leave a review, guys. It really helps me a lot. If you leave a review, then more people will be able to find the show when they search it. So whatever platform you're listening on, please leave a review, share it out with your friends. You can go to linktree.com/withbeans to find everything. Okay, are you ready for this? Are you ready? Is my question. Okay, here I am, little me, with Glenn Jacobs. I mean, yeah. Little me with Glenn Jacobs. And he's very big. And my camera angles all changed since I haven't been here. And then there was this one. Look at this one. It was something. It was definitely something. He's massive. I mean, he's just big. Like, I had my arm around him. If you could see in this picture, I had my arm around him. And I think I was just cradling his ass with my arm, truthfully, if you look at it. Like, his butt is like right where my arm would go. It was funny. But he's great. I mean, he was so kind and so fantastic. We got an interview with him for Maha. As you can see, this is Media Row. It was much different this year than normal. I know that I'm going to have to address the elephant in the room. Like, there were rumors going around that J6 people all got kicked out. I don't know what happened there. And when you're there working, like I was working, and I don't know the organizers of CPAC personally, and I was working, so I didn't get to go and find the organizers of CPAC and ask them why they kicked Jake Lang out of CPAC. I have no idea. But I do know that I did speak with 5 or 6, it was 6, J6 folks while I was there, and talked to them about everything they're doing, their plight. They were able to have a panel. So I don't know that this was a direct, like, oh, let's just kick out J6 people. This was more of a, I guess, a personal thing. I have no idea. But anyway, that was me and Glenn Jacobs. Now, last night, we learned that Donald Trump has appointed Dan Bongino as Deputy Director of the FBI. This is something I didn't expect at all. I thought, if anything, he would go to Secret Service or somewhere like that if he went anywhere. If Dan is the same way inside that he has been on his podcast for the past 4 or 5 years, then he knows everything. He knows everything. And it's going to be very interesting to see how this shakes out. The media is downplaying this, kind of making it like, oh, he's just a podcast host who got appointed to run the FBI. No. The cash confirmation was unbelievable. This is going to be very interesting, to say the least. I feel like we're living in a parallel timeline. Like, if you would have told me, at CPAC, I got to bump into Jan Jekielek from the Epoch Times, and we had a lot of really awesome conversation because the Epoch Times booth was a couple down from me, and I got to interview Jan for about a half hour about Maha and stuff like that. And like, if you would have told me or him 5 or 6 years ago that in 5 or 6 years we will have a Trump presidency, Kash Patel will be director of the FBI, Tulsi Gabbard will be at the DNI, Pam Bondi will be AG, Robert Kennedy, RFK would be at HHS. Am I missing anybody? I would have said, no, that's a pipe dream. Like, you crazy lunatic. There's no way on God's green earth that will ever happen. But here we are. Like, it's like almost like somebody really nasty and terrible was running the game and programming it for like the past several hundred years. No, that's too long. 100 years or so. Let's say 100 years. And then all of a sudden someone said, okay, they're done. Bink. And we're in this ridiculously hopeful and optimistic timeline where everything can change forever in just a few short years. Like, even if, again, I keep saying this, even if we just dumped information for 4 years straight, I said Tulsi. Anna Banana's saying I didn't say Tulsi, but I did. There's something really amazing happening on this planet right now, and I'm just so glad I'm here for it. Like, that I'm alive right now. Oh yeah, Hegseth, Duffy. I mean, yeah. It's just insane. It's like, I'm so glad I'm alive right now to see this great awakening that's going on, like, across the entire planet. Right? It's just I never would have been able to predict this. And with all of that, I wanted to go through this a little bit because this is really, 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 really bothering me. I don't know whether Mayor Adams is corrupt or not. I would assume something's probably happened at some point. That is not what this is about for me. Let's just stop for a second. The DOJ dropped charges against Mayor Eric Adams in New York City. What happened, in my opinion, now we're just going to get into opinion real quick, okay? Mayor Adams was starting to get frustrated with the illegal immigration issue in New York City and wanted to do something about it, and was slowly dripping this out in press conferences he was having about, what he wanted to do to try and fix the problem. And as soon as he started doing that, the Biden administration started, and Hochul and all of them, just started to try to nudge him out. And when he wouldn't let up, he was supposed to go to Lee Zeldin. Yes, Lee Zeldin. He was supposed to go to D.C. to meet with President Biden. And all of a sudden, he has these federal charges slapped on him, right? And then the Trump administration comes in and drops the charges. The Attorney General of the Justice Department drops the charges. There's a mutiny in the field office where these hoity-toity, I am so righteous prosecutors decide that if she doesn't change her mind, they're resigning. Okay? And it's just it reminded me very much of the Flynn case then. So there's this whole big press thing. They don't have a choice. They don't get to decide these things the way that they were acting. It comes from the Attorney General, that's it. If the DOJ does not think that prosecuting a case is in the interest of justice and wants to drop the case, that's it. What does the judge in this case do? The judge in this case declines to dismiss the criminal case against Eric Adams, postpones his trial, and brings in a friend of the court to argue against the government's case for dismissal. And I'm telling you something, this is literally exactly what happened in General Flynn's case. General Flynn accepted a plea and he stepped back and he rejected the plea. He changed his mind, said, I'm not taking a plea, I want to go to trial, right? He decides to go to trial, and then in discovery, we get all kinds of information that proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that this is a malicious prosecution. Finally, the Trump team appoints a special prosecutor to take a look at what's going on in this case. They do the due diligence, they look at it, and they say, this is unbelievable. We're going to drop the charges. So the plaintiff in the lawsuit, for lack of a better word, says, we don't want to sue anymore. We changed our mind. We want this to go away, but it just so happens to be a criminal case, okay? So it's a criminal case where somebody's life and whatever is in jeopardy. They decide that they don't want to, the government says, I don't want to prosecute anymore. And then the judge says, well, I don't care if there are no parties to this lawsuit anymore. I'm going to continue to prosecute this lawsuit either way. To prosecute this case either way. I'm going to bring in some outsider who I say is unbiased to convince me why I should listen to the government, the one who brought the case in the first place. It's exactly the same thing. And Shipwrecked Crew on X said, oh, actually, remember Flynn had pled guilty and that's why it was different. No. Know the case. At the point in time where the DOJ dropped these charges on General Flynn, he was not accepting a plea in the case. He was fighting it. And it went all the way up to the second level of, the full-on bank hearing. And then they made a decision basically smacking down the Judge Sullivan in the Flynn case and said, you'd better do what I say. Do what we say, this is out of bounds what you're doing. And instead of dismissing the case as he was directed to, he sat on the case hoping that Biden would win. And then the only way they could get out of this is by President Trump issuing General Flynn a pardon of innocence. Basically, I'm going to pardon you for these federal things because these people want your head on a platter. And the only way we can get around this is if I pardon you. The only way around this is if I pardon you. It's the exact same thing as the Mayor Adams case. Now, I don't know anything about his case. I don't know what he's charged with. I think it was, I don't even know. I didn't pay attention to it. Some kind of corruption thing looked remarkably like selective political persecution to me. Because as soon as he wasn't going with this immigration deal anymore, they came for him. Because that's what authoritarian dictators do, right? And now the judge is like, I don't care what the DOJ says. I'm going to keep going with this, and I'm not going to dismiss it, even though there's nobody suing anyone anymore. There's no charges anymore. They dropped them. How do you... This is third world country crap right here, okay? Whether he's guilty or innocent or whatever, this is third world country stuff that they're doing. The DOJ at the federal level brings a case against someone and then realizes it's not in the interest of justice to continue for whatever reason and tells we're not doing this anymore. And then the judge says, yeah, over my dead body, I'm going to keep this case alive. No, that's not how it works in this country. That's like if I don't know, somebody stole my car or something out of my car or didn't pay me rent. Let's go there. Somebody owed me rent and didn't pay me rent, and so I took them to court. And we're in the middle of going to court, and they decide, or I decide, that I don't want to continue the case anymore. It's too much hassle. Maybe I work something out on the side. Who knows? Who knows? So I say, you know what, Judge? Thank you so much. I'm dismissing this with prejudice. I don't want to continue this case anymore. And the judge is like, oh no, like hell you will. You're going to continue suing this person, and I'm going to bring someone else in to tell me why you should, and then we're going to keep this going forever, and both of you are going to be on the hook for it. It's unbelievable. It's insane. It's crazy. It's nuts. This is third world country stuff. Seriously. So keep your eye on this because it's getting really, 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 it feels like deja vu. Like, I wonder if I asked Mayor Adams if he knew the case of General Flynn, if he would know how this feels. He doesn't know the case of General Flynn. So, there's that. Unbelievable. Now, the latest in DOGE. Bear with me. I have things in the wrong order here. There we go. Let's listen to this. Elon Musk sent out a letter. Well, DOGE sent out a letter saying, if you can, before 11:59 p.m. on Monday night, send us an email with 5 things you accomplished last week. If I had to do that, I could rattle off 30 things that I accomplished last week. 1 sentence each. Super easy. Not even a problem. These people are insane. These people are entitled. They're insane.
Well, we're about a month in, and Alonia still doesn't understand how chain of command works. It is Saturday, and government employees are receiving an email from hr@opm.gov. Let me show you. As a federal employee, I just want to remind everybody that I do not report to OPM. I report to my supervisor, who reports to their supervisor, who reports to our HR, who reports to a lot of other people, but I do not report to OPM. As you can see, it says, please reply to this email with approximately 5 bullets of what you accomplished last week and CC your manager. Please do not send any classified information. Deadline is this Monday at 11:59 p.m. Alonia also tweeted and said that if we don't respond by the deadline, that it will count as our resignation. But the deadline said this coming Monday. It didn't even have a date listed. They keep sending these emails on Saturdays and then saying that we miss the emails because we're lazy. But I don't think that these people understand that government employees get paid to take home their laptop and work on the weekends. So that would be more taxpayer dollars going to waste. Nowhere in this email does it state that I will be terminated if I miss this deadline. Nowhere in this email does it state that I even have to open the email. So I will be reporting this.
First of all, let's just stop there. Nowhere in this email does it say that I have to open the email. How would you know that unless you opened the email? Like, these people are insane. They really, truly are. How would you know that if you didn't open the email?
Until my manager tells me otherwise. These people seem to think that they can operate outside of the law, outside of employment law, outside of just judiciary processes. So yeah, I don't know.
Just write a freaking email with 5 things that you did. You didn't do anything. You figured out what color hairband you were going to wear. Come on. Seriously? This is the kind of, like, there are many very dedicated, hardworking federal employees. There are people in there that are right now ratting out all the people that are this girl. Write the email, even if you open it up on Monday morning. I opened up an email on Monday morning and it says, I'm your boss. I'd really like to know just 5 things that you accomplished last week. Okay. It really just has to be a few sentences. What you did last week. 5 things. 1 thing a day. 1 thing a day. You can't come up with 1 thing. That's a problem for you? Like, you have until midnight on Monday. How long is it really going to take you to write an email with 5 things you accomplished the week before? You have all day Monday and all night. Oh, Lord. I couldn't get over that. That was insane. All right. We're moving on to health. And the rest of the time that I talk today will be about health, because that's what makes me excited nowadays. It's talking about health. And there was this Piers Morgan clip that really blew my mind, that they're starting to talk about these things. Now, that doesn't mean that I trust Piers Morgan or Deborah Birx or any of the people that are saying these things. I just want to listen to this.
There are millions of young people.
You know what happened?
Hang on, Francesca. Hang on. Don't start shouting. Don't start shouting. Let me put a question to you.
I bet money that Francesca's on drugs right now.
Francesca, let me put a question to you. Hang on, guys. Hang on. Can you both please hang on?
What happens is,
Francesca,
people's medications away.
Can't stop.
Let me make a point, please. Let me make my point. Let them respond.
I feel like I'm.
Can you everyone stop talking for a moment?
I'm on a panel.
Francesca, the point.
This is okay. The fact that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 grown adults can't have enough respect for general conversation to let people talk. Little Missy on the end, blah 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 blah. Everyone else chimes in with their, like, it's just. Do you feel like you're babysitting a toddler?
Point I'm making is America has 80% of the world painkiller consumption. 80%. Right? You have millions of don't respond yet, millions of young people who are taking completely unnecessary, mind-bending drugs for things like anxiety, depression, often self-diagnosed. And guess what happens? You then have a load of weirdo, loner kids running around with their brains scrambled who commit mass shootings and stuff like that. There is a direct correlation. And we're going the same way in Britain. Young people are getting massively over-medicated. So I am actually in favor of RFK trying to pull America away from its addiction to mind-bending drugs.
It shouldn't be a controversial concept, okay? It shouldn't be a controversial concept to want to stop this insane scourge of overprescription of medication that alters you in ways that we don't even know all of the ways it alters you. I will tell the story again. My dear friend, Gigi, her daughter committed suicide at 16 after being prescribed Zoloft by a doctor who was getting kickbacks from pharmaceutical companies. That was one of the things that really kicked me into gear to get on this quest in the first place. After that, it was the Gardasil vaccine. And these young people are missing a core part of themselves. They're eating absolutely atrocious foods full of chemicals. And again, I'm going to say this. This is why the COVID-19 vaccine accountability is of the utmost importance, and vaccine injury accountability in general is of the utmost importance. And I'm going to talk about that a lot today, actually, because there's been this misconception that MAHA doesn't care about those things, and it's absolutely untrue. It's not. But I make the argument this way, and I think if you just listen to me, you will probably understand where I'm coming from. If people weren't afraid of a virus that couldn't really hurt them, save the very unfortunate, they wouldn't have been so eager to inject an untested poison into their veins, okay? If they knew that they were healthy and that their immune system was functioning properly, and we were 2 years or a year and a half into a pandemic, and they'd been able to make it so far, they wouldn't have run out and injected themselves with a poison that will kill them. People aren't healthy in general, and when they aren't healthy in general, they reach to someone else to save them. They don't take that power into their own hands to do what they have to do to be healthy. So they will reach out to a doctor to prescribe them a pill which will make them feel better. People who are on SSRI medication, whether they're adolescents going through puberty and are metabolically unhealthy, or they're adults who have a lot of problems and are also metabolically unhealthy and just they're yearning for the same thing. All of them are yearning for the same thing. Anyone who's depressed wants to be happy, wants to be joyful, wants to feel love again. So they reach for a substance, a quick fix to do it for them because they don't know where else to turn. Probably because they're being pumped full of poison in their water and in their food and everything else all day long. And so you need to get to the root cause of all this and figure out why people lost their connection to God and why they're so unhappy. Not just give them a pill that's going to make their body do things. And not everybody responds to it very well. Everybody doesn't respond to it very well. As a matter of fact, there's a very loud and vocal group on social media right now speaking out about the harms and after effects of SSRI medication. And if I didn't witness this firsthand for myself, it would be different for me to be sitting here saying this stuff to you. But I did. I experienced this firsthand after being married to an absolutely amazing, beautiful soul who was clinically depressed because, it turns out, he was chronically metabolically unhealthy. And once he changed his diet and he was able to fix all that because his body was working properly, which allowed the chemical balance in his body to be the right way, which allowed his mind to be clear, which allowed him to connect back to God, which made him happy. It is a circle that is so important. And so, yes, we need to study these medications and their effects on children because it's so important. Our kids are these beautiful, free creatures. If they don't fit in the box of traditional behavior, you need to, schooling, which I argue is indoctrination camps, literally public school. If they don't fit in that box, sit in a chair for 8 hours and look at this book and listen to me lecture you. If they don't fit in that box, then they have ADHD and ADD and you have this and you have that. And you, instead of saying you're a beautiful free spirit, let us find an education model that works to nurture that for you. They put them on medicine. They put them on medicine to dim that amazing spark that could probably be nurtured and fostered and made to be revolutionary for the world. We just pump them full of medicine that is horrible for them. And the studies have not been done the right way. And that's what RFK wants to do at HHS. And there are these people, this one in particular, who is just in favor of drugging up kids. I don't know if any of you out there have ever tried to come off of antidepressants. Some people can do it. Other people, it's not that easy. It's not that easy. And so these are addictive, brain chemical altering substances that are a band-aid without looking for the root cause. And the whole point of this Make America Healthy Again movement was to, and is to, get to root cause healing from the inside out and teach people like what they might not know that could help them along on that journey to make themselves well again. And anybody who thinks that that does not include the food that you are eating every day is just not there yet. It is the only conscious choice that you make for your health every single day, multiple times a day, is what you eat and what you drink. You have complete power over that. You do. And so what you use for your body to fuel this beautiful vessel that God created is so important to the health and well-being of everything. If your gut microbiome isn't balanced properly, which is very easy to do without having to take a ton of medicine and supplements, then the rest of your body isn't healthy either. It has to do with your mental acuity. It has to do with your hormone production. It has to do with everything. So it's really it's the whole package. And speaking of which, here we go.
Studies on Girl Scout cookies where they break them down and find out what's in them. Oh, holy shit. They're fucking toxic as fuck. Thin Mints being the worst offenders, 5 flavors of Girl Scout cookies contained, back up, contained levels of glyphosate and heavy metals above EPA water safety limits. New investigation found 100% of tested Girl Scout cookies contained glyphosate, 100%. Controversial herbicide and Roundup, 88% contained toxic metals like arsenic, lead, and mercury. Key finding, Thin Mints had the highest glyphosate levels at 111.07 ppb, 334 times what experts say is harmful. Peanut butter patties had the highest heavy metal contamination, with lead reaching 42.5 ppb and aluminum at 27,500 ppb. 76% of cookies tested exceeded cadmium safety limits, and 96 contained lead.
That's wild.
Girl Scout USA, which sells 200 million boxes per year, $800 million in revenue, did not respond to researchers before publication. I wonder why.
Respond.
We wrote about this for the High Wire on February 10th. That is just Girl Scout cookies, guys. That is just Girl Scout cookies. I'm dropping this article in the Rumble chat for you guys to read it. Send it to your friends. They tested them. Do you think that's okay? Do you think that's okay? Do you think that has no effect on your body? Do you think that has no effect on how you think or how you feel? Do you think that just, you reach for that sweet snack? Let's forget the fact that it's loaded full of processed sugar. Let's put that aside. Do you think it's okay to eat lead and glyphosate and cadmium and all of this thing? No, it's not. It's not. And that's just one subsection of food. This is so important. The vaccine accountability is super important, and we're going to spend the rest of this show on that because there's something that happened that I think you guys may have missed, and I want to play a bunch of it for you. And we might not get to calls today. Dentist Mark usually wants to jump in on Mondays, but I've been gone for so long, I'm not sure that it's going to work out for that today. But just bear with me. MAHA is about vaccine awareness and informed consent. It's about teaching people about this stuff so that you have the information at your fingertips to make the informed decision on whether or not you want to put this stuff in your body. If you do and you have the information, that's your choice. It's about food. It's about spiritual wellness. It's about healing your body, your mind, and your spirit. All of those things. All of them. When we were back in the Ron Paul revolution, we were screaming about Monsanto. Way back in 2008, I know people were doing it before that. We had our friends with farms, starting to make their own farms so that they could eat fresh food. But Dell was with Politico, and I just want you to see this segment he did with Politico in DC. It's on healthcare, and then we're going to go to the next thing. Here we go.
Let's talk about, you mentioned the childhood vaccine studies.
Yeah.
And last week, you spoke at a press conference that HHS should do another study on the link between vaccines and autism. But there have been a number of studies investigating that link. There was a 1991 one by Brent Taylor, another on children in Denmark in the 90s by Dr. Christine Madsen, and dozens of others that have disproven that link. What would this study that you're proposing do differently then?
Oh, well, first of all those people set out to disprove the link, and that's my point. What happens if you try to prove the link? That's how real science is done. If the entire statement is that vaccines don't cause autism, finding scientists that set out to prove that vaccines don't cause autism, that's not how you do that study. Get scientists say, I think I can prove vaccines do cause autism. And if they can't pull that off, now you have a true safety profile. So we've been, doing science the wrong way. I think very simply, you could start with a study of the VSD, the Vaccine Safety Data Link. 10 million people are on it. The Institute of Medicine studied that Vaccine Safety Data Link and said, you have tens of thousands of unvaccinated individuals that are in this database. You can do a well-powered comparative study looking at vaccinated versus unvaccinated. That study has never been done. That is an absolute shock. At least they tell us it's never been done. Why aren't you comparing the vaccinated to the unvaccinated and asking simple questions? Who has more cancer? Who has more diabetes? Who has more autism? Who has more ADD, ADHD? Who has more lupus? Who has more childhood cancer? These things are all skyrocketing as we watch the vaccine program growing, and you're pointing out a handful of studies that are mostly funded by the pharmaceutical industry that has an agenda to say this isn't a link. So yes, show me a comparative study of the vaccinated versus the unvaccinated that shows that the vaccinated have lower rates of autism, that they have lower rates of cancer, that they have lower rates of diabetes. If you show us that study, then I think we will, we'll have to take a serious look at that and say, then what else is it? What other environmental toxin is it? And then we go into not just the vaccine studies, how do we know it's not vaccines with certain foods? I
want to make sure we have enough time.
Yeah.
I mean, the studies I did mention.
I want to make sure you have enough time. Because he's blowing you out of the water.
Do look at unvaccinated and vaccinated populations.
No, they don't. No, they really move around. You know what they look at? They look at all the kids that got every vaccine except the MMR vaccine, and then every vaccine plus the MMR vaccine. That's how most of the studies are done. I would call them Jack Daniels studies. I could do a study where you do 10 shots of vodka, and then the other control group gets 10 shots of vodka plus a Jack Daniels, and they say, drive a car, and they say, look, there was just as many car accidents in both groups, therefore Jack Daniels does not cause inebriation. That is how they're doing these studies.
But then
he's so good, just so good. And she doesn't know what to say because these people have just been fed talking points, okay? If you missed it, for some reason, Maha did a launch last week right after Kennedy was confirmed. 2 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago. Right after Kennedy was confirmed. To explain what we're doing next, if you go to maha.io, you'll see a landing page where it kind of details our 5 goals of what we want to accomplish. Full disclosure, as I've said it before, in case you've missed it, I'm working with Maha. It is just a natural place for me to land. It is everything that's in here. There's no other place I'd rather be than with Del at Maha. It's just where I need to be. And I'm so blessed that I have the opportunity to work with them. Here's just a snippet of this press conference. This is a room full of Washington Post, CNN, major media press, or formerly major media press, but you know what I'm saying. The legacy media is all packed in this room. Just listen.
It's much like what happened to me. I was working on the doctor's television show, and I was tipped off that there was a whistleblower inside the CDC named Dr. William Thompson, who was going to come forward and say that they were committing scientific fraud in the vaccine safety studies, specifically the MMR autism study. I made a documentary ultimately about that because, as many of you are aware, I pitched it to my executive producers. I know who you work for. I work for CBS. And they said, we're never going to go near that story. There is no way we are going to do a story that calls out the CDC and says that they're committing fraud of any kind, because we got to go and report on the latest flu epidemic, and they would let us behind the scenes, and we would make it into television, and we're not going to hurt that relationship. We're also not going to go after a product made by Merck, who's just one of the pharmaceutical companies that fund this show and fund most of television. As you well know, if you work in television, somewhere between 50 to 70% of advertising is coming from the pharmaceutical industry, which is why you're mandated to write the things that you write and told the things that you cannot write. So sometimes it takes courage to step out and do investigation beyond that. Let me show you very quickly where that investigation should start for all of you. These are vaccine inserts. I had my COO, Bridget Rasmussen, go by a doctor and say, we'd just like to see some vaccine inserts. Twinrix, I mean, I could read them off, Haverix, Shingrix. They didn't do infants, so we didn't get hepatitis B and those things, but I find it shocking, and you should find it shocking as a reporter, how many times I've read, well, the experts say, when Del Bigtree or Robert Kennedy Jr. says that there's been no placebo-based trials to establish safety prior to licensure, I would probably put money that none of you reporters have ever grabbed one of these and read it. Or if you did, then how did you write, the experts say, that that is misinformation? Because it's written in every single insert that shows up with every single vaccine that you've taken and that our children have been given. And so when people say, is Robert Kennedy Jr. going to take a vaccine away? I would say Robert Kennedy Jr. is going to begin a conversation of transparency, of talking about the actual science that is written in every one of these lists, pages and pages of injuries that are right here, written by the manufacturer by law because they are happening to real children and real people, and no one in front of me right now has ever written about this story. Why? How can you say you're doing your job? Who are you working for? We are supposed to be the fourth branch of government, the fourth estate. We are supposed to challenge these things and say, for how many years will we let these injuries happen before someone decides to make a better product or do a study and figure out, is there a test we can do to see if you're vulnerable to these injuries? We've never studied who these injuries are happening to. Sure, go ask the experts, just like Tony Fauci, who told you social distancing was science and questioning him was questioning science itself. Just like the vaccine stops transmission, which every single one of you wrote. I don't know how many of you have apologized for getting wrong. But on the high wire one day before anyone, the show that I do online, before anyone received a COVID vaccine, I read the emergency use authorization by the FDA. And it said very clearly, this study could not prove whether or not this vaccine can stop transmission. So what were you writing about? Where was your science, and exactly how do you call the people that got it right the spreaders of misinformation? You have been the spreaders of misinformation. You have gotten it wrong, and America is still waiting for an apology.
This was the most amazing press conference I've ever had the privilege and pleasure of watching in my entire life. I want to replay this entire press conference so that all of you can hear it over and over and over again. Maha is this. Del is standing in front of a Maha podium talking about the things that we all, some of you just recently with COVID have realized all of this. Some of you have been on this journey your entire adult lives, and even when you were kids. Some of you are unvaccinated your entire lives. Some of you are vaccine injured. Some of you have suffered at the hands of this. Why am I having to partner with a company to advertise to you something that can fix or try to help fix your body after one of these drugs was injected into you without informed consent? That's what we're doing. I want to play a little more of this. Hold on.
Health and Human Services to what he describes as radical transparency.
Robert Kennedy Jr. began talking about this when he was first asked by parents that were coming up at his environmental hearings where he was talking about mercury in the water, saying it's toxic, it's destroying health. And those mothers said, will you please look at the vaccines? There is mercury, the same thing you're fighting to get out of our water, is being injected into our children. Of course, he was reticent because mainstream media and mainstream medicine scares everyone away from ever doing any investigation into that. But eventually, a mother sat outside of his door with a stack of studies, and he couldn't ignore her, and he began reading. It's much like what happened to me. I was working on the doctor's television show, and I was the vaccine. They had a belief that it was safe because they never did a proper placebo trial to test if it was. We just had an RSV vaccine just a couple of months ago, by the way, that finally had a saline placebo trial, and they stopped it because babies were getting sick, and it was clear that the vaccine was hurting children. Is that just because it was the first placebo-based trial we'd ever seen in a childhood vaccine? And let me say this unequivocally, if I ever see you write in your paper that the experts say a placebo trial was done, then you better print it in that article, and I've said that to all of you, and send it to me and Robert Kennedy Jr., because at the NIH, Tony Fauci and Francis Collins admitted we don't do them. So what does that mean? What does that mean for the safety of our babies and our children? A day-one-old baby is getting a product that we only cared to test for 5 days. Does a healthy child not deserve better than that? Because a cancer patient does. Our grandparents get products that are against placebo for years. Why are our babies not mattering? And by the way, America has the highest rate of first-day baby deaths in the industrialized world, reported by CBS. Is that caused by hepatitis B? I don't know. Is it caused by bad hospitals? Are we a third world nation? Do we not know how to treat a day-one-old baby? Robert Kennedy Jr. is about to start having investigations into these horrible stats.
The whole thing is fire. And I had to stop it real quick because somebody in the chat here said, it's too late for me and my family. We took it under pressure. Our mistake is just waiting. God help us all. And I want to stop for a second. It is EKCENRAJN. I'm directing this at you. I want to show you something. I wasn't going to do this, but I want to show you something. It's never too late. It's never too late. Don't feel that way, because your body is one of the most amazingly resilient, beautifully crafted creations in all of the world. I'm going to go through this real quick because I shared this for the first time the other day. My husband was diagnosed with MS in 2018. In 2017 is when he had his first presentation of the disease. He went for follow-up testing and he went for MRIs, and this is what they found. His first MRI report, let me go full screen. Thoracic spinal cord, suspected subtle T2 hyperintense lesion within the central cord at the T12 level, similar to the prior study. No definite new lesions identified. No abnormal cord enhancement. What does that mean? That means that on the T12 level of the spine, there was a lesion from MS on his spine. This was a year later, after he had started the carnivore diet. He had just started it, okay? He had started it maybe 5 or 6 months before this scan was taken, a year later. Findings: thoracic cord is normal in caliber. There is very well signal throughout the thoracic cord, the majority of which appears to be artifactual, meaning he was moving around. The previously described subtle signal abnormality at T12 is less conspicuous on the current examination. No abnormal contrast enhancement. What that means, no abnormal contrast enhancement, means there's no active disease going on. After year 2 of carnivore, MRI thoracic spine. Thoracic cord is normal in caliber and signal. No discrete lesions are appreciated on the current examination. No abnormal contrast enhancement. Thoracic spine alignment is within normal limits. Mild scattered degenerative changes do not result in significant spinal canal or foraminal stenosis. Do you know what that means? That means that the carnivore diet allowed my husband's body to heal itself of the lesion that was caused by MS. It's gone. It's healed. That they will never admit that. A doctor will never say, they will say it's impossible. They will say there's no way. They will say there is absolutely no way you might be able to regain some function, but you'll never be 100%. Please, I beg of you, it is never, ever too late. It's never too late for you and your family to be well. With the right combination of nutrients in your body, food in your body, which then allows you to be mentally clear, which then allows you to reconnect to your God, to your Creator. You can heal yourself. There is so much research out there right now about this, about the power of the mind over the body, the power of the spirit over the body. We have a miraculous vessel here that we use every single day. Miraculously constructed. Don't ever, ever think that it is too late. It is never too late. I have seen testimonials and witnessed. I met two gentlemen at CPAC who cured themselves of cancer via diet. It happened to be the carnivore diet. I have another thing up here from Dr. Chaffee about this, actually, so kind of leads right into it. I want to play this for you.
Good idea to get on, specifically for the MS, it's a good idea to get on a lion diet. So just red meat and water. Anybody with an autoimmune issue like MS is always going to do best on just red meat and water. So beef, lamb, and water. A lot of fat, especially for MS. That's a demyelinating disease of the axons and the nerves that come down from the neurons. That's really important. Those are made out of fat and cholesterol. And so you need fat and cholesterol, and you want to be in ketosis too, because ketones cross the blood-brain barrier, reconstitute into fatty acids, and they make up the physical structures of your brain. And so you need enough fat, you need enough ketones, you need enough B12. Specifically,
that's about autoimmune disease. But the amazing effects of that, plus a good detox protocol that you can find for your family, just being healthy. And not only that, this is something that I try to stress all the time to folks. Your mental state, living in fear, like I don't want you to be walking around, and I'm still referencing you, EKC. I don't want you to be walking around in fear of what ticking time bomb you have going on. That's not the way. What's in the past, you can't change. You have control over literally what's happening right now, this second. You can take this second and own it every single second, right? So place yourself, instead of being, I don't know that you're doing this. Like, I don't live in your life. I don't know that all day, every day, you're like, oh my God, I took the COVID vaccine. What's going to happen to me? But with the news cycle the way it is and the talk the way it is, it would be very easy for anybody to be nervous more times than not about what was going on inside of them or what could potentially happen to them, and living in that fear of what that could be for them, what that could mean for them. And if you can do a little bit of a perspective check, and instead of doing that, just think thoughts about your wellness and how I'm walking, I'm hanging out with my family, I'm eating better, I'm taking care of myself. That makes all of the difference in the world. So please, if you have taken the vaccine, this is not a death sentence for you. It is your opportunity to seize the chance to consume the information and get the guidance you need to make sure you are living healthy, and everything else falls into place. Everything else will fall into place. Again, when I was begging everybody to become precinct captains in the Republican Party 5 years ago, I said to you all, I can't ask you to do it if I'm not going to do it myself. And I did. Anytime I've ever said, guys, you have to do this, it's because I've done it myself. I did this myself. I'm speaking to you from a place of experience, a life-changing experience that I can't explain. The only way that I can do it is to sit here and just passionately explain to you what I've got, what my life story, what my life path has been. I've seen remarkable, miraculous things happen to people, even in worse conditions of than just I got a vaccine, I'm not experiencing any symptoms, everything's okay. I've seen people on the brink of death heal themselves and come back and thrive. So it's just a thought for everybody out there. Do not ever discount the power of your body. Do not ever discount the power of the human spirit. Do not ever, ever discount that reconnection to your creator and how that can benefit your life and make things better. And also, do not listen to anybody telling you that Maha does not care about the vaccine issue. It's just not true. It's just not true. Everything that we talk about is important. Because if you're going to continue to pollute your body with poison every day in what you choose to eat, your chances of recovering from that injury that you want accountability for are much, 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 much less. And the chances that you probably would have taken it knowing that you were healthy as an ox, it all goes together. All of it's important. All of it. So you can fix yourself. And my family is kind of living proof of that. And it's been a blessing and a godsend. If you guys have appreciated the show today and you want to share it out with your friends, please do so. The show notes will contain everything, including that Maha press conference that you should watch. I just want everybody to know that it's never over, right? It's never over. Share out the podcast with your friends. Check it out on all the audio podcasting platforms, all of them. Go to linktree.com/withbeanz or go to uncoverdc.com to see everything. And we'll be back tomorrow.